report leak. And people are angry. The autopsy report of 3 of the 6 victims who were brutally killed by Kuki militants have increased tensions in Manipur. The autopsy reports of 3 members of a Meitei family reveals that they were shot multiple times before their bodies were dumped in a river. According to the report, one victim, a 3-year-old boy, had a bullet wound in his skull. His body also showed several lacerations indicating injuries from a blunt object. The boy's body was in advanced state of decomposition. The boy's mother had 2 bullet wounds on her back and his grandmother had 5 bullet wounds. Both bodies were also found in a highly decomposed state. The report concluded that the exact cause of death for the 3 victims would be determined after chemical analysis samples were submitted to the forensic science lab in Guwahati. The autopsy of the 6 bodies was conducted at Silchar Hospital after the bodies were found floating in the river. Now, because of this news becoming public, there has been an impact in the valley. And the impact is that the government has cancelled the school reopening order and directed that all schools in the valley districts remain closed on November 25th and 26th. People are protesting. People are upset in the valley. They demand action against the militants responsible for the abduction, murder of women and children from Jiribam. Let me play out the bite and then I'll straight away go to my guest Suhas Chakma.
मैं इंडिया गवर्नमेंट से एक प्रस्ताव रखना चाहती हूँ। जब कुकी की एक लड़की को एक नेकेड परेड किया था इस युद्ध के बिगनिंग पे, तब तो चारों तरफ से इसके खिलाफ आवाज निकला था, लेकिन जब छह मैतेई लड़की और बच्चियों को मारा गया है तब तो एक भी आवाज निकला नहीं है इंडिया गवर्नमेंट के साइड से। और यहाँ पे बहुत इनोसेंट पीपल को बहुत मारा डाला जा रहा है, तब इंडिया गवर्नमेंट के साइड से अभी भी कोई भी स्टेप आवाज भी नहीं निकला है और एक स्टेप भी नहीं उठाया गया है।
In a separate development, Manipur police team tried attempting to destroy illegal opium cultivation in Kangpokpi district. It was stopped by 80 to 90 armed miscreants, militants I would say, and forced to retreat without clearing the illegal farms. The militants fired, snatched police team's weapons. So it just goes on to show that what was being desired to control the poppy cultivation is not bearing result. Let me go across to Suhas Chakma. Suhas, first thing first, the protests that are taking place in the valley, do you see an end to it? What's happening?
I actually do not see an end to it. These are natural reactions to kind of violence which have taken place, and it's not limited to one particular community. It's actually about the communities resort to this kind of protest. So I do not see any kind of end to this protest so long this situation cannot be brought under control, and this incidents will continue to take place and Manipur will continue to boil. And I think in the entire process what happens is that people have lost any opportunity for development. If you look at them, they have been living this kind of a life the last 1.5 years without any access to any kind of human development. So you can imagine what is happening. Imagine the situation of those who do not have employment of the government of Manipur or the central government, just common people on both sides, and they must be leading a very difficult life. And I think human development index should have gone down automatically. So it's an unfortunate situation that these things are continuing. But what could people do except expressing their own anger through this kind of protest?
Vijesh, there is also another aspect to it, and that is that with this murder, the positions have hardened tremendously. Well, and so people don't realize it outside, but this have some events are transformative. They change the attitude of the community.
Well, Kartikeya, in this program of ours, I had said several times that, that God forbid if anything happens to those 6 women who have been, 3 women and 3 children who have been abducted, God forbid if anything happens to them, it will be a cataclysmic event as far as the situation of Manipur is concerned. Now, if you go by the kind of horrifying details, extremely horrifying details, which is coming out, through which those young boys were killed and the bullets were put to the head of women who have been killed. I think any community, it will be a very long time before they come to terms with it, and it will not only harden the situation with the Kukis, but I think it will also harden the situation with the government also. It will make a less elbow room for the government, to carry on negotiation on their own, because the pressure of Meitei society will also be a lot on the state government, that why when action can be taken in one particular scenario, that same kind of action can't be taken in another. So I think the government will also have a very less elbow room to maneuver and to convince the society, because as these details are emerging, I seriously doubt that any society will be backing out of this particular scenario.
Absolutely, I agree, because sometimes events have a transformative effect. Mr. Chakma, there is another aspect which I think you're the best person to speak on. You must have recalled that there was a post in which the photographs of the areas where the jungles were cleared, the poppy cultivation taking place were shown. Okay, that is one part of it, but the other part of it is that the ineffectiveness of the action. So it brings me to the position when we talk about clearing these areas of poppy cultivation, it is not easy. I mean to say, it's not easy.
Well, in Manipur, there is no governance, there is no enforcement of law and order. So if you look at this, of course, this is a genuine protest. You had seen that, despite having so many security forces, and you actually, when it comes to law enforcement, so they cannot enforce the law. So if you go and, I think this attempt to ban this poppy cultivation, etc., and they themselves facing problems, and the security forces running away, etc., it basically shows this has been typical Manipur, where the armed forces have not been able to exercise the sovereign power given by a government. So that's why I always say.
So is it correct on my part to say that the Manipur right now is a deeply militarized state, very the most armed state in Northeast? Is it correct?
No, I think you can say, it's very easy to say it's not the most armed state or militarized state. It's the only state in India where the security forces cannot exercise the powers given to them under the Constitution of India, under the Criminal Procedure Code, or the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Under any law, they cannot even enforce the basic, arrest or basic detention or basic, law enforcement personnel, government officials performing their duties. When you have, the security forces going and burning down the poppy cultivations, it's basically the government officers performing their duties as per the Constitution of India, and they are not able to perform it. So I think to say that Manipur is militarized, well, there are definitely, in terms of presence of the military, it's the most militarized. But the military and the police and the central security forces in Manipur are the weakest in India. Nowhere else, the security forces are so weak. Everywhere, police are scared of the, people are scared of the law enforcement agencies. In Manipur, nobody gives a damn.
Why? I know I need to. Why? Why aren't they scared? Why aren't they scared?
Well, because the security forces have not been given the necessary powers to exercise. So if you control the Meiteis, it's a problem. If you control the Kukis, it's a problem. Then, as I said, these are basically peacekeeping forces. So if two communities are fighting each other, their job is only saying ruko, ruko. Then you stop the conflict. Then they are very happy about it. But they will never arrest any of the offenders. So that's where the problem is, and the problem lies with the state government having, as Brajesh had mentioned, they have their own consideration. So, it's an unfortunate situation. From the beginning, if you remember, that the security forces had to show their badges to the vigilante groups from both sides. Where in the world, you could see or you could allow that kind of a situation. And we have allowed in India, in this largest, democratic country with fourth largest army in the world, the army go there and some vigilante groups will stand up in the street and say, "Aap card dikhaiye, then only you can pass up." So you can imagine the kind of impact it had on the morale. So there is no police officer, there is no army who wants to exercise the power.
No, I actually concur with you that if there is so much of force which is operationalized in an area, there is a fear and people cooperate. But I think in Manipur it's a different story. In Manipur it's a different story, but Northeast has become a completely different story. I must say that entire Northeast, if we just take ourselves outside Manipur, there is a lot of political issues. For example, ISKCON chief gets detained in Bangladesh. I mean, the Hindus are getting persecuted in Bangladesh. Rohingya camp in Cox's Bazar has become a recruitment center to fight a war in Myanmar. I think Manipur, not only Manipur, Northeast requires a sort of a holistic approach, because the events which are happening will definitely have a long-term consequences for the national security of India. So this was all in the On Point 3. Thank you and good night for watching On Point. Do tune in tomorrow at the same time at 7 p.m. Good night.